Hi there. I know I've been talking a lot about what can be done, what should be done, what aren't we doing. I haven't really said much about what's new. And there's a lot that's new in this world. For one thing, there are communities in California who are aware of the fact that teachers can't afford to live in those communities. If they did, rental alone would take up 50% of their salaries. So what are they doing? They're doing community housing for teachers. Not only are they going to raise teachers' pay so that they can afford to live and work in the same community, but they're taking federal land and building housing so that rentals will be cheaper. I've always felt, what's the best way to climb that ladder of success? It's education. It's education that gives a chance to all kids. That's the way to climb the ladder of success. I met a Pakistani man, a taxi driver, who is very, very proud of his crew. He said he's only been in the country about 20 years, and yet his kids are going to Harvard, Stanford, and I think they went to NYU Med. Honestly, I wish my grandchildren could do that. Because in today's world, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing. And when I think about discrimination, reverse discrimination, I don't like discrimination of any sort. If you've got the merits, you should be able to advance, whether it's in education, whether it's in professions, no matter. I'm not for ageism, nor am I for basic discrimination of any type. Everyone deserves to climb that ladder of education and professionalism and success. I know for a fact that when you're in your 50s and your 60s, that's your best earning years. That's when you need to be employed. We got to cut out what's happening in corporate America, where corporate America decides who lives and who dies, literally, because OSHA doesn't seem to have any fangs anymore and can't seem to enforce any fines on them so that corporations will be mindful and really take care of their workers appropriately. Amazon has something like 6.8 injuries per 1,000 people. Evidently, across the warehousing spectrum, 600,000 folks could be saved every year if OSHA just was able to find people effectively and enforce their laws. As a small business owner, I never wanted to have any of my people injured on the job. I paid for OSHA training, and I also gave them paid leave, and I gave them paid sick pay and decent wages. That's why they worked for me. In Great Britain, folks are striking almost every single day. They need a calendar to keep up with, whether it's the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, the post office, the railroad people, and on the list grows. Their inflation is much higher than ours. And no, when asked, do I think our inflation is going to go up by giving people decent wages, I gotta give you a resounding no. Wages have been stagnant for too long. There isn't anyone I know who's making a decent wage who is not working overtime and double time and probably not getting paid for it either, and doesn't deserve a raise. And as far as ageism is concerned, every single corporation needs people in management. They're too skinny, and nobody knows what are the procedures and goals of the organization. Well, a good manager would know that, and a good manager would be keeping on top of his people all the time so that nobody is just running in circles and accomplishing nothing. But that's how we're doing everything in America today, and evidently global. We're not taking care of people. Profits come first. When they don't come first, and they're made along with good ideas, that's a better way to go. In Europe, they're actually using renewable energy, solar panels in between the fields, whether it's vineyards or wheat, no matter. Solar panels are existing and coinciding with crops. It actually gives the crops a cooler environment and also a more moist environment. The crops are no longer at the mercy of the sun because the solar panels can literally track the rays of the sun and shield the crops as necessary. And what a boon it is when you have to pick those crops because you're not now in 100-degree heat. So it's a win-win for people, and it's a win-win for the economy, and it's a win-win for sustainable energy. Speaking of sustainable energy, we didn't raise carbon emissions as much as everyone thought we would with the Ukrainian war. Emissions only rose a little less than 1%. Less than 1% raise in carbon emissions keeps us steady at 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we actually got to decreasing carbon emissions by 7%, we'd have all emissions on the planet. And that's got to be our goal, folks. Is it going to happen in a year? No. Can it happen? You bet, because we have the technology to do so. As I'm speaking, countries that have tremendous wind capacity are using it. People who have tremendous solar capacity are using it. We may not be doing it here, but sure, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a lot of money in the kitty for infrastructure. With the money left over from COVID, a lot of the states are really solvent, and they can put money right back into education. And while we're talking good things to do, it might be a good time to look at our penal system. We kind of reward private prisons. We keep people in some jails in Texas 17 years in solitary confinement. And what was their crime? They may not have had any crime. They may have been associated with a gang when they were young. Well, 17 years later, those gangs probably don't exist. And these guys, if they haven't gone mentally depressed and suicidal, it's a miracle. West Germany doesn't do that at all. West Germany treats people, even people who are incarcerated, as if they're human beings. No guard gets into the West German penal system without having psychological and social worker training. No inmate can stay in jail without seeing a psychiatrist and a psychologist regularly, once or twice a week. And their cells are not open cells with bars. Nope, it's like walking into a one-bedroom apartment. One room where they're outfitted with a TV, with books, with the internet. Wouldn't that be nice to have here? So that we were not penalizing people forever, and we did practice what we say in the Bible we believe in redemption? That would be a good thing. And another good thing would be giving people the right to vote as soon as they've paid their dues to society, and not asking them to pay their dues actually in real funds over what the state thinks they may owe, but because they have been in jail or in a federal prison and they've served their time. They deserve to be out and part of the voting public. In Florida, that's a large part of the voting public. 1.7 million people of African American and Hispanic heritage behind bars. That's a crime. There are other things that are criminal, but that in itself is a way to keep entire populations from having a say and a voice and a representative in government. I think America has almost the equivalent of the 16 million who were behind bars in Russia during the gulags. It's time we were more humane. It's time we treated drug addiction as a social ill with social remedies, not jail. It's time that we did community service for non-violent crimes. And we also had bail reform. $25,000 for a poor kid who really hasn't done that much wrong or anything wrong at all, because there is no adjudication yet for his crime. It's just alleged crime. Why should that child be in jail? Why should anyone be in jail without due process? So there's a lot that we can do. Here in New York City, we've got a group that's working on closing Rikers Island and doing exactly what I said, bail reform. And I'm hoping Kathy Hochul is listening, our governor, because this is an issue whose time has come. There's a lot going on where the federal government is not allowed to act. A lot of the states are acting proactively. Unfortunately, when it comes to voting rights, just the opposite is happening. And 35 out of our 50 states are putting in restrictive voting rights. And that's all. So one party can get in over and over again. It's just too cozy between corporate America and government. That's another thing New York State is doing. We're putting more money into the kitty if you're running on your own without corporate donorship. The state will match your funds, I think, 6 or 8 to 1. It's giving independents a chance to win. And I hope something like this catches on all over America. So, what are we doing? We're doing plenty. And we can continue to do plenty. and move forward, knowing that we've got science and technology on our side and more humane people who are having their voices heard. Thank you for listening.